Vegas, baby. Vegas. Vegas is certainly going to be interested in the games this Sunday, as well you should be. And in honor of Vegas and all the money they're going to rake in this opening weekend, we are offering a 10% off promo code at dailyroto.com/premium on all of our NFL packages if you use the promo code Vegas. Now we're going to be talking about Vegas totals and how they affect DFS here. And when DFS was in its infancy, we saw Vegas totals over-relied on quite a bit. There was less free content out there, and it was just something that people could point to and say, oh, the Saints team total is 28. You got to get Saints in your lineup. And quite frankly, it is a good data point, but if you're simply pointing towards a team total as justification for a play with no other supporting evidence, you're doing it wrong. Now, on the flip side, we've seen a pushback against Vegas totals a lot recently. I've seen a lot of discussions about this on Twitter in particular over the last year or so. And one thing that people are pointing towards is why Vegas isn't a good data point is a relatively low correlation, number of 0.25. Our correlation was used in Warren Sharp's 2017 football preview of Vegas totals to points scored. And the idea here is that you get an R squared number then around 6 to 7%, which is basically saying only 6 to 7% of the points teams are scoring are explained by their Vegas total. But there's certainly some issues with this type of analysis. For starters, using an R correlation isn't the best way to study the accuracy of Vegas. As pointed out in Advanced Daily Fantasy Football by the Advanced Sports Analytics team, the over-under is an estimate of the median outcome and not necessarily the mean outcome. So while this does mean Vegas has its failings in the sense that they're not projecting a mean outcome, it's also important to know that one, teams with higher Vegas totals consistently score more points than teams with lower Vegas totals, and they have a higher range of point total outcomes. And two, team points scored meaningfully impacts fantasy production. These are just facts. It's a simple A to B to C logic that shows Vegas team totals are a useful data point. We know touchdowns and scoring are significant aspects of fantasy scoring. Even if Vegas isn't good at predicting the actual score of the game, they are good at pointing us towards which teams are likely to score the most points and vice versa. And given the Vegas totals, we can logically deduce a sane range of realistic outcomes for teams, and that's going to help us better identify good fantasy plays. Now, if you could better identify expected point totals for teams outside of Vegas, quite frankly, you'd be rich. You would have gone to Vegas, you'd bet on all the over-unders in games, and you would have made a lot of money. So the reason why you haven't done that, and you're listening to me right now, is even though Vegas, yes, isn't a perfect way to predict expected team point totals, it is one of the easiest ways to start and a pretty darn accurate way to start. What's nice about using Vegas with the DailyRoto Customizable Projections is that we found a middle ground of using Vegas as a useful piece of information, the starting expected points for a team, but not over-relying on it as some sort of magic signal to directly deduce fantasy points from. We also put this power in the hands of you, the user. On our customizable projections, the team totals are editable. So if you think one is wrong, if you think Tennessee has a team total of 27 against Oakland, they're going to blow them out of the water, they're going to lay it on them, you can up that to 31 and see how that affects the projections. And the other important aspect is the ability to tweak the percentage of team passing TDs to rushing TDs as a ratio. And also you can tweak individuals' market share of touchdowns, whether it's rushing or receiving. This is meaningful because one of the shortcomings of stopping at the Vegas team total and not doing more work is that different teams operate in different ways, from pass run ratios to concentrated or oversaturated offenses. A team with a concentrated offense may see more scoring benefits for individual players than a team with spread out production that just happens to have a higher team total. So we're framing context around team totals, and our customizable projections allow you to do that. And you add all this up with some other smart math underneath the hood, such as historical offensive TD rates, and we're able to use Vegas in a smart and simple way to help project how team scoring is going to impact individual players. Now let's take an example from week 1 of how this can be applied. The Bills have a team total of nearly 25 points. That's going to be one of the highest they have all season because they're home versus a terrible Jets season. It could be the highest team total we see for them all season. Now, mentioned in the previous slide, oversaturated offenses, ones that are spread out, and we can't exactly tell where the production is going to go, how it's going to be deduced, whether it's on an individual level or team level, and concentrated offenses. And the Bills have a concentrated offense, especially when it comes to scoring. They ran the ball 69% of the time in the red zone or inside the 10-yard line last year. That was the most in the league. So we can project, and again, this is customizable feature on our projections, we can project a high percentage of their touchdowns are going to come in the ground game. Now, when you take it to the individual level, you've got LaShawn McCoy projected for a really high market share of the rushing TDs for the Bills running backs because there's absolutely no competition there. There wasn't much competition coming into this season, and then his main competition for being vultured and whatnot in Jonathan Williams was released. So with the concentrated individual volume and also a high expectancy of rushing touchdowns relative to passing touchdowns, that Vegas team total for the Bills is pretty important. And to give you a comparison here, if you drop the Bills expected team total in our customizer down by 5 points, so from roughly 25 to 20, LaShawn McCoy would lose around 1.2 fantasy points on DraftKings. Conversely, former Buffalo Bills running back Mike Gillislee, now of the Patriots, you'd have to drop his team, the Patriots team total, 11 points to see the same reduction in fantasy points. That's because the Patriots, even though they're expected to score so many points, they score a lot more of their points via passing touchdowns, and they have a lot more bodies to spread that out on it. You know, at the running back, they have Rex Burkhead, Deion Lewis, James White. You've also got Tom Brady taking quarterback sneaks. And this is a really good example of why team totals are important. But if you're looking at just the team total by itself without any other context, you're going to run into problems. Now, if you haven't signed up already for the DailyRoto projections, make sure you do so at dailyroto.com/premium and use promo code VEGAS for a 10% discount.